Kia ora and welcome to Chapter 8 in the book, The Future of Learning. In this chapter we're going to be looking at memory and remembering. It's important to realise that in fact we don't know a lot about this really. What we have realised is we've got different memory systems for each of our different learning systems. And so we've got 4 different memory systems, okay, one each for each of the 4 learning systems. How we store memories is often thought about by most people as a computer. Somehow in our heads we've got this hard drive which we call neurons in our brain that stores memories just like a computer stores memories, but that's simply not the case. How we store memories is quite unique, and we still really don't have a very good functional model for that. What we do know though is that if we look at, for example, our first one, sensing our world and how we remember that, okay, and we look at sequencing in terms of learning to speak and listen, there's a fairly large genetic component preloaded for those 2 things. In other words, we are wired from the start to remember how to sense our world. We're wired from the start genetically to sense how to speak and listen. And there's a lot of previous work being done in this space. If we look at the adaptation of sequencing in terms of rote learning, why rote learning is so poor is because we have only had a number of generations for that. And to remember in terms of rote learning, we do have this process of temporary, short-term, long-term. And that uses, we think, different processes in the brain. So the temporary memories are formed in a certain way, short-term memories are stored in a certain way, and long-term memories are stored in a different way again. And in the book you'll see the details around this in terms of the way in which we store memories. When it comes to concepts and ideas and concepts, when we come to that space, how we store memories is once again different entirely, because we don't have temporary, short-term and long-term. It goes straight to long-term memory. When you have your aha moment, that idea, that concept is there immediately. And when it comes to our capacity for creativity, when we come up with our creative solution, we remember that permanently straight away. And so in the book we talk about the different parts of the brain and sections of the brain that assist in this process. But we mustn't have this notion that we understand how memories are formed, and they're formed in this notion of they're sitting inside a particular cell, or type of cell even. The brain cells that we have, and we have a raft of different types of brain cells, with the 2 dominant groups seeming to be at this point in time neurons and glial cells, in particular a type of glial cell called the astrocytes. They seem to be the dominant space and place where we actually place our memories, but we don't remember them well. And so our memories are very contextual. When we've got to remember something, we remember it differently depending on the context we're actually working in. And so if you want to actually remember something well, what we need to do is actually move that into a concept, because we map concepts really, really quickly and really efficiently and wonderfully, very, very equitably. Because most of us have been doing concepts through the lines of our histories behind us, our generations that came before us. We've been doing that forever. And therefore we're all really, really good at that and fairly equitable. It's only when we come to recent changes in the way we learn in terms of reading and writing do we get a distribution curve for that. So you can have a look in the book, have a look under there's a chart there and a table there that sort of breaks down the different types of memory systems we think, okay? And so we've got a whole bunch of maybes in the table and a whole bunch of possiblies in the charts, etc. in there. But those are some of the thinking that is going on at the moment around how we form memories. But how we learn, which is the subject of the second of the sections in this book, will unpack the implications of that and how we can learn more efficiently. And that's really the gem out of this whole sort of process, is understanding how we learn. How we form memories, well, we form memories, and we form memories in different ways. How that actually happens technically is of little importance really to us as educators at this point in time. And it's going to be a long time before we actually produce a computer that can do the things that humans can do. You know, if that ever happens, I'll be surprised. Because in fact, doing what we do and doing it how well we do it is really extraordinary. And replicating that with a computer, we're not even remotely close to that at the moment. Despite the robots you're now seeing on television doing amazing things, they have to be pre-programmed for every single activity they do. They cannot think like we think. They cannot imagine like we imagine. And they can't be creative. And they're not sentient as we are. So that's what we take with us. So have a read of the chapter. Follow up the links, etc. in there. And thank you very much.